Hi everyone, I'm really happy to spend the next hour with all of you. And today, I'm going to walk you through design thinking, um, what it is and what it means within our education system. But first, I want to start by saying that you're all amazing. I mean, teachers are super influencer. You have more power than you think and more autonomy than you might believe. And today I'm going to show you how you can amplify your impact and change the world by adopting design thinking as a teaching framework. And I'm going to start by sharing a story with all of you. And this story is about Doug Diaz. Doug Diaz was an industrial designer at General Electric for over 20 years. He designed different medical equipment, and he was very proud of the work he was doing because he knew that the machine he designed helped save life across the globe. So he was very happy with his contribution to society. So when the MRI machine was invented in 1970, everyone realized that this is going to revolutionize the healthcare system. And Doug Diaz really wanted to design this machine for General Electric with his team. And he was really excited when his team was chosen to be the one to design this, the MRI machine. And they've been working on this design for many months. And when it was ready, Doug Diaz wanted to go and watch the MRI machine in operation at one of the hospitals nearby. So he arranged to go to a nearby hospital and stand there outside of the MRI room and was looking at the corridor. And then what he saw a little girl approaching the room. In one hand, she was holding a father hand, and on the other, with her other hand, she was holding her mother hand. And the three of them were walking towards the MRI room. And he saw that the little girl was crying, and she was looking at her father, and she said, "Dad, I don't want to go through it. Do I have to? I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it." And her father, very emotional and obviously was in distress, looked at her and said, "I'm so sorry, but we spoke about it. You have to go through it. You have to do it." And all three of them, that little girl and her parents, they were all seemed very stressed and very upset about the whole thing. And Doug suddenly realized that they're all walking towards the MRI room, and that little girl was going to undergo an MRI scan, and she was frightened by the prospect of going and doing that scan. And suddenly he realized that children are afraid of the MRI machine. And when he asked the medical staff about it, they told him that many children have to be sedated because they can't lie still during the scan. They're just too scared and too afraid. So about 80% of children that needed to go through an MRI scan had to be sedated to undergo this procedure. And Doug was quite shocked, and it was an epiphany for him at that day, because he suddenly realized that he's designing medical equipment for people. And he suddenly realized that for over 20 years, he was designing machine, thinking about how he can make them more powerful, how he can make them more durable, how he can make them more sleek, how he can make the machine more effective. And he never stopped to think about the people who are going to use these machines, about the patient that are going to go through this examination. And suddenly realized that this patient, these people, they don't care about how powerful this machine is or how efficient it is. They only care about how their experience is when they enter that room and having to go through that examination. And he thought, that's just not right. I have to fix it. I can't let it go on like that, where children are so afraid of being scanned in an MRI machine that they have to be sedated. I have to fix that. And so Doug remembered that he heard about design thinking, and he heard that this is a human-centric approach for problem solving. And he thought, okay, I'll use that approach to solve this problem and fix that. And here what you see in front of you, this is the design thinking process. It's called the double diamond. And as you can see, the first diamond is all about understanding the problem. As you're probably aware, as humans, we are not comfortable with staying with a problem for a long period of time. When we face a problem, we kind of rush to find a solution, and often we rush to the first solution that comes to mind because we don't want to stay with this problem for a long period of time. But in design thinking, we actually spend a lot of time within the problem space. We spend a lot of time researching and understanding the problem, really getting deep understanding on the problem, and really diverging and gathering as much information as we can. And as part of that process, we interview people, we perform observation, we read research paper, we talk with experts, we read books, we do lots and lots of things to learn as much as we can on the problem. And only once we have a lot of information on the problem, only then we converge, and then we find a pattern and theme in all the information we gathered. And by that time, when we finish with understanding the problem, then we really understand the problem that we need to solve. And sometimes we start with one problem, but after we've done all this research and analysis and synthesis, we realize that actually we have a better problem to solve. Actually, we need to look at a different problem. And only then we diverge again, we explore solution. And this is where we brainstorm different ideas with a diverse group of people without passing judgment on ideas. All ideas are accepted. And actually we encourage coming up with crazy ideas, because these crazy and different ideas, they help us look at the problem from different angles. And it helps us build on each other ideas and find this innovative solution. So together, we can always come up with a better idea than we can on our own, because we are limited with what we know and our way of thinking. And so we brainstorm different ideas, come up with as many ideas as possible, we diverge in, and then again, it's time to converge again. And this is where we choose 2 or 3 ideas that we want to prototype and test quickly. So one of the basic ideas behind design thinking is to prototype as quickly as possible the idea that we want to test with the user that's supposed to use it, get their feedback on it quickly and cheaply. And then we either understand that this idea is not going to work well and we move on to the next idea, or we understand that, okay, it's working, but there are a few things we need to change in order to make it better for the users. So the concept here is to understand the problem, spend a lot of time within the problem space, and then quickly and cheaply come up with prototypes that we can easily test, get feedback, and create kind of iterative loop that helps us really understand if our solution is going to work before we spend a lot of time on creating that solution. So what Doug Diaz did, he started with the first diamond, with understanding the problem. And as part of that research, he did a really deep research. He spoke with families and children that came to the hospital to undergo an MRI scan. He spoke with medical staff, with a pediatrician. He did some other research. He looked into other industries that providing services for children to see how they approach providing services for children and easing their fears and all of that. So Doug and his team spent a lot of time researching and understanding the problem. And then from that research, they came up with different themes. They identified patterns and got a really good understanding on what it means and how they should approach this problem. And then in order to come up with ideas, he gathered different people from different industries, because a key things in when you come up with different ideas is to have a diverse group of people, because this diverse thinking helps you come up with better ideas. So that gathered people from different industries, they brainstormed different ideas, and then they chose an idea to prototype. So if you remember, this is how the MRI machine looked before. That was the initial design. Do you want to see how it looked when they prototype it? Yeah. So this is how it looked. So basically what they did is they changed the whole concept around being scanned. They turned the whole room into an experience. So the child that had to undergo an MRI scan, they were told a story. And in this case, it was a story about a submarine that where they dive deep into the ocean and encounter different marine life. And then they need to lie still within the submarine in order to see all these interesting creatures. So the children were told a story before they started the scan about the whole adventure that they're going to go through. So they turned the whole being scanned by an MRI machine to a beautiful experience for children. So this is one of the rooms they came up with. Another one was the beach experience. That was another story and a different experience they told the children. And the last one, which is my favorite one, is the pirate experience, where the children were told that they're going into a pirate ship and they need to lie still within the pirate ship. And when they get to the other side, they'll reach a treasure chest and find amazing treasures at the other side. And so this worked amazingly. And what they discovered is that, if you remember before, I mentioned that many children were afraid of being scanned by an MRI machine, and about 80% of them had to be sedated in order to undergo the scan. So once they turned the whole experience into a wonderful adventure for children, the number of children that had to be sedated dropped to 20%, which is a huge, huge drop. And then Doug came back again to the hospital and he stood outside the room, the pirate adventure room. And then he saw a little girl getting out of the MRI room with her mom. And that little girl looked at her mom and said, "Mom, this was such a beautiful and amazing experience. Can we come again tomorrow?" And Doug was just so happy to see how the whole experience has been transformed for children that had to go through a scan. So I'm interested and curious to hear your initial thoughts about design thinking as a framework for solving problems. Do you have any questions or anything you want to share about it? And feel free to unmute, or if you want to, you can comment in the chat, whatever you feel comfortable with. Anyone wants to share? Oh, there's something in the chat. Let's see. It's your message, Pooja. Okay. All right. So in that case, I'm wondering if you see any connection already between design thinking and your teaching. I know it's probably now there's quite a big gap between learning about design thinking and thinking, well, what does it mean for me as a teacher, and how does it relate to a classroom environment? So if you want to share maybe about connection that you might see already between design thinking and what it can mean for you as a teacher. Anyone wants to say something about it?
Yeah, see, I would like to add, I have seen this happening already, because, when you were explaining about MRI, how students used to deny and attracted towards the same later. So this I have seen happening in different schools, is more this kind of things happen in primary level, kindergarten. I have experienced because when we started campaigning on child abuse awareness and all. So I have seen children when we used to just go and talk about it, or we'll try to do some we used to do some activities and all, but children were not that involved. But when we have initiated by adding some comics and music, animated videos, all that, so that created more interest, and we could see that children actively involved and getting more things, understanding more things, which was not possible just by communicating through, just drama, all that. So I think, I can clearly see the connection between design thinking and, teaching. This
Yeah.
example, what you started with, definitely gives more clarity.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right. Because within design thinking, we actually, because it's a human centric approach, so we think about who are the users, and in that case, who are the students, right? What do they like, what they don't like, and based on their age and things that they enjoy doing, we tailor the learning experiences for them. So that is exactly what's happening, and that's part of the change that happens when you use design thinking as a teaching framework. All right, great. So, but why do we even need to? We talk about design thinking and being excellent problem solvers, but why do we need to create great thinkers? I mean, why do we even need to change the way that we teach? And the thing is, you're probably very well aware of the changes, the rapid changes that happen in our world due to the advancement in technologies. So technology is progressing at an incredible pace that seems to just increase all the time. And with machine learning and automation and artificial intelligence, for example, the type of jobs that we do changes, and how we do our current jobs is changing. And you're probably aware that new job types are popping up every day. I mean, for example, if you think about Uber driver, who thought that's going to be a profession 10 years back, right? Or being a drone pilot or social media expert or YouTube influencer. These are all new job types that didn't exist when I'm 10 years back. And so children that study in primary school today, when they finish school, we don't know what kind of jobs are going to be there for them. And most of them are going to work in job types that don't exist yet, that are going to be invented at some point. And so we need to equip them with the skill they need to succeed in whatever job they're going to be there for them. And the crucial skills for success today are superhuman skills such as creative thinking, problem solving, collaboration, empathy, all of these skills that computers can't replace. And these are our unique human skills. And so this is why it's so important to help children develop great thinking skills. And a big part of it is being creative thinker, innovative thinking, and being excellent problem solvers. And if you also look at the world around us and what's happening today in terms of the problem that we need to solve as human beings, so we have very complex problem to solve. One example is global warming, that unfortunately that our children will have to deal with it. In a way, the government today are not handling the situation and not dealing with the problem. So our children will be kind of forced to deal with it and solve many big problems that are resulting from global warming. And if you take, for example, COVID that we faced recently as a global problem, these are the kind of complex and big problems that our children will need to solve. And so we need to help them become excellent problem solver and innovative thinkers so they can handle this problem very well and find innovative solutions for these problems. So this is the reason why it's important to help our children develop these skills. And if you think about it, great thinkers are excellent problem solvers, and they are design thinkers. Design thinkers at their heart, they solve problems. They find innovative solution for problems. And this is why it's so important to adopt design thinking as a framework for teaching. And one of the beautiful things about design thinking is that you don't need to change your curriculum. You still use the same curriculum. It's just the way that you teach is changing. The framework of your teaching is changing as you're using design thinking as your framework. And it works perfectly well, even with all the restriction of our education system. And I know that in any country, in all the countries, there are many restrictions for teachers that work within the education system. But still, you can choose how you facilitate the teaching and learning in your classroom. And design thinking is a framework that you can adopt. So let's look at how it looks in the classroom. So I'll share with you an example from year 4 class. And this CE4 class, usually they had an inquiry unit about natural and processed materials. It was part of their science studies where they look into different materials such as wool and jeans and cotton, all sorts of materials. They explored what the properties of each of these materials, how they're different from each other. And then they were asked to design uniform for emergency service provider and create a poster of this uniform and mention which materials they're going to use to create this uniform. So what we've done, we turn it into a design thinking project. And when you think about design thinking project, because it's very human centric, you think, okay, what problem can I present to the students that is relevant for them and that is meaningful for them and that they will enjoy working on and be engaged because it impacts their own world. And in that case, talking about materials, in Australia, all the students have to wear uniform. I'm not sure how it is in India, whether in each school you have to wear uniform. But in Australia, we do. And so children are asked to wear uniform, and no one ever asks them, what do they want out of the uniform? How would they like to design them, and what's important for them in the school uniform? And so we came up with this design thinking question of how might we design suitable school uniform? And we let these Year 4 students work on this problem. So as you know, they started with understanding the problem, with diverging and exploring what it means. And as part of that exploration, they did many things. They did look at different materials and their properties, and they also looked at where are these materials sourced from? Where are they coming from? They actually looked at the tags on the uniform and saw that they have been manufactured in Bangladesh. And then they started to look at factories in third world countries to see what's happening there, what are the working conditions. And they were quite amazed and shocked to realize the poor condition that people work in third world countries to create these materials. So that was something that really opened their minds to what it means and what the fashion industry, what it means for third world countries, for people who work in such factories. And they also looked into the cost for the environment for growing different materials. For example, cotton. In order to grow cotton, you need to have a lot of water. It consumes so much water. And in some countries, actually, because they were growing a lot of cotton, rivers got dried and lakes got dried, which is shocking. If you think about the cost to the environment of growing cotton is huge. And they looked into organic sourced material versus non-organic sourced, because as you know, when it's not organic, there's a lot of pesticides and chemicals which are used to create these fabrics. And these pesticides and toxin, they actually run to the rivers and the water sources in these countries. And it's just devastating the impact it has on the environment. And as part of that research, they also interviewed other students in the school to understand what's important for them about their school uniform, how do they find their current uniform items, what might be missing for them, what's important for them out of their school uniform. And they also interviewed teachers at that school to understand from the teacher point of view, what's important for teachers about school uniform, what's important for the school, because the school has a different view in terms of the uniform and what they represent and what's important for the school in terms of the uniform. And they also interviewed their parents to understand the parents' point of view about school uniform and what parents are looking for from school uniform and what's important for them. So they really gather a lot of information during this research phase. They did a lot of research to understand this problem. And then they ended up having a lot of information, a lot of data. And another beautiful thing about design thinking is that they learn how to analyze and synthesize data. And as you're very well aware, this is the information era, and we are bombarded with a lot of information from so many different sources. And so it's important to help children understand, okay, how do you deal with big a lot of data, when you have a lot of information, how can you make sense of it? How can you analyze and synthesize this information? And often this is something that is not taught at school. And as part of the design thinking process, the children really learn how to look at the different pieces of information and find the patterns, find themes. So for example, they, as I mentioned before, they interviewed teachers and students and their parents to understand each one of these stakeholder groups about their point of view in regards to school uniform. And so when they were doing their analysis, they looked into each one of these groups, and then they started to look whether there are themes, shared themes between the three different groups, and what might be the differences, and why there are differences between the three different groups. So they really got to understand the different point of view of students, teachers, and parents in regard to school uniform, and what are the similarities in the way that they view this topic. And what they found that there is one thing in common between the teachers, students, and parents, because everyone said that there is a need for winter items. All of them said that during winter, the children are really cold. They don't have warm items, and so they're going to school and they're very cold. And with this understanding, with these insights, the students then went on with a double diamond process to come up with ideas. So they finished understanding the problem, and now they were ready to come up with ideas for solution. So as part of the solution they suggested, some of them were about winter items, and they designed beanies and gloves and scarves, for example. And then it was time to prototype their ideas. And what we've done, we brought actually a sewing machine, as you can see, to the classroom, and different fabrics. And the children actually brought to life their ideas. They actually created that items that they designed. And here you can see one of the beanies that this girl, she came up with a design for a beanie. And she actually created that from the material we brought them. And the funny story about it, it was done at a school where the principal is bald. And as I mentioned before, a big part within design thinking is to create your prototype and test it with users. So apart from students testing the beanie, the principal was actually testing that as well. He was walking to and from school wearing that prototype on his head and gave feedback on the design of this solution. And so after they gathered feedback on the different prototypes and improved some of them, they were ready for the next step. And the next step was implementing some of their ideas. So one of the beanies design was added to their school uniform. And now children at the school actually wear this beanie. As you can see in this photo, this is one of the design for beanies, which can now be purchased at school. So it's very powerful and it's very empowering for the children to know that they can drive a change within their environment. They have the power to do so, and their voice is important. And so by helping children, by working with design thinking as a framework and empowering children in this way, they know that they go out to the world as someone that can drive change, as a member of the society that can make a difference. And this is very important because we want children to feel empowered, and we want them to drive changes within their communities and globally also across the world. We want them to know that if they want to, they can make a difference. And luckily today, it's not just because I've been working with schools for a few years now, and I'm seeing the result on the ground. I mean, I'm seeing what skills children develop as a result of learning using this framework. And they develop, as I mentioned before, their creative thinking, collaboration, resilience, empathy, problem-solving skills, critical thinking, data analysis, all these wonderful skills, they develop in it. And I see it in my own eyes. But what I'm happy to see that there are more and more research papers that studied how design thinking impact teaching and learning at schools. And there are now quite a few research papers that find a direct link between using design thinking as a framework to excellence academic result. One of them, and I'll mention a few of them, one of them was done by Concordia University, and they looked specifically into the impact of using design thinking as a framework to math. As you know, math is a complex subject in terms of the relationship of children with math. Often at some point, children feel that it's too difficult for them. And sometimes they give up and they think, okay, I just can't get it. Math is not for me. I'm giving up. And once they adopt this mindset, they stop trying and solving math problems. They just think it's too hard for them. And then they grow into adults that still have this mindset that math is too difficult for me. I don't understand it. And I just can't get it. And Concordia University actually did a research on what happens when students learn math using design thinking as a framework. And they discovered that suddenly these students, their confidence in their capability to solve problem increases, including math problem. And so even if they are presented with a complex math problem, they don't shy away from it. They try it, and they know that even if they fail for the first time, they learn from it and they try again, and they'll try again, because a big part of the design thinking process is knowing that you're trying and you might not succeed the first time, but that's okay because you're learning from it, and then you're trying again in a different way until you find the right solution. And so children develop this approach to math. They approach it with a growth mindset that they know, okay, I can do that. Even if I'm failing now, I'll find a way to solve this problem. It's okay. And so there is a direct link between success in math and developing confidence in your capability to solve mathematical problems and using design thinking as a framework to teach math. And there are other research papers which were looking into this topic in a broader range, in a broader lens. And for example, North Carolina State University was looking into what happened generally when you adopt design thinking as your framework to teach any subject at school. And they discovered that, yes, students develop a growth mindset, their confidence in their capabilities, they become better problem solver, their creative thinking develops, and their empathy and collaboration skills are evolving, and also their communication skills, because design thinking is a very collaborative process. And so through the whole process, they communicating with each other, and as you saw with the research phase, they interviewing other people, and that also helps with their communication skills. And then when they test their prototype, they also present the prototype to different people, get their feedback on that prototype, and it helps also with their capabilities to communicate well. And so North Carolina State University research paper concluded that design thinking is the framework for teaching for the 21st century, and it's the best framework to use, as it helps children develop all these 21st century skills and help them develop as a well-rounded global citizen within our world. And what happens to teachers when they adopt design thinking? That's another interesting thing to look at. And I want to share a story about it. And so when I started my journey within the education space and about adopting design thinking as a pedagogy, I started this journey looking at the children. I have 3 children of my own, and this is one of my drivers to start this journey, because I wanted to make sure my own children have the right learning environment, the environment that gives them what they need today to thrive, and also all other children in the world. And so I was focusing on what it means for the children to learn design thinking and what kind of skill design thinking helps them develop. And then I started working with different schools, and I was talking with different teachers, about what they observe in terms of the impact on their students. And they kept confirming the results I mentioned before and the huge impact on their students. And then one day when I had a conversation with one of the teachers, I asked him, is there anything that surprised you about design thinking, about this journey that you're going through? And he said, you know what? Yes, there is one thing that really surprised me. He said, you know what? Design thinking hasn't only transformed my student thinking, it's actually transformed my own thinking as well. It shifted all my thinking around teaching and the way I design project-based inquiry experience. So he was amazed by the shift that happened within himself as a teacher. And if you think about it, this is huge because when teachers are shifting their mindset and approach toward teaching, it's huge because each teacher teach like, I don't know, a few thousand students across their career. And so this is a huge impact on so many children and their families and the broader community. So one teacher that adopted different mindsets and design thinking is influencing thousands of other people. And this is just amazing. And then as I was speaking with more and more teachers, I discovered more and more the impact design thinking has on them. And Craig, for example, he was saying, you know what? It makes my life as a teacher easier. He said, we usually spend so much time on lesson planning and it can be really exhausting because as teacher, as it is, you overworked. There's so many things you have to do every day. And so Craig was mentioning that when he learned design thinking, it actually helped him with planning the lesson. He said, once I learned the double diamond process, I knew exactly what I need to do. I didn't need to think a lot and spend a lot of time on planning because each step of the way, I knew exactly what I need to do and how I need to take the students along the journey from understanding the problem until they creating the prototype, testing them, and deciding on the right solution. So it made his life as teacher easier, which was wonderful to hear. And I kept hearing more feedback from teachers on how how adopting design thinking transformed their own world as teachers. And Grace, for example, said that it really opened her mind about exploring different ways of teaching. And she said, it allowing me to empower the children and really giving them more freedom and being more flexible and providing them with voice and agency. As you know, in Australia, voice and agency is a big part of what the Department of Education want to drive within our schools. And so by learning design thinking, Grace was able to provide her student easily that voice and agency and empower them to drive change and basically in a way to lead their learning experiences. And Sienna mentioned for me that it had a huge impact on them, and not just in the way that they teach different subjects. She said that learning design thinking as a teacher helps them think about behavior management completely different. So even when they have behavior issues that they need to solve, now they approach it completely differently. They adopt a design thinking process to solve behavior issues as well. And that makes everything much easier, and they can come up with better solutions and better approaches to solve different problems within the school environment. So as you can see, adopting design thinking has a huge impact on students, but also a huge impact on teachers. So what I want to say is that you are amazing and you have the power to create a unique and innovative learning environment in your classroom. Even with all the restriction this system is imposing on you, and I know there are so many restrictions, but it's your teaching and it's your impact, and you have a choice. You can choose to use a different framework, such as design thinking, to facilitate your learning in such way, and by doing so, to provide your student with such a rich learning environment and so much more engaging and empowering learning environment, where they develop all these beautiful skills that I mentioned, and also a growth mindset. And many of them learn also to love math, which is a great bonus. So what's next for you? If you're interested in taking the next step and enjoying all the benefits that design thinking can bring to your teaching, one of the things you can do is use my book. As Pooja mentioned, I wrote this Think Unique as a comprehensive guide for teachers, and I've taken my experience from working with so many teachers and students and created that step-by-step guide for you that will enable you to create that learning environment that you saw before with that example with Beanie project with designing a school uniform. And so that can be your guide to create that learning environment if you wish to do so. And I'm always happy for you to get in touch with me and start a conversation. Feel free to reach out and have a chat, and I'll support you in any way that I can. And if you have any question now, I'm happy to take any question or any comment.
Ochal, I think teachers play a major role in whatever you have mentioned so far, because see, there are two things. One, what teachers actually carry to the classroom, because few teachers want to they teach that so that students can learn, and their intention is to make child to learn. And there are other category of teachers, their goal is to complete the syllabus. And I believe those teachers who want their children to learn definitely start thinking in this way. And I have seen many teachers putting in a lot of effort and trying to make sure that they understand what their students' need is and what makes them to sit and listen to them and sit and follow or involve, get involved themselves and learn. So they will observe all these things, and they first thing they do is trying to understand the classroom, and then try to deliver what actually make them learn. And those who don't care, and who those who just want to complete the syllabus, and they are, I have very clearly seen this also, just getting into the classroom as per the schedule, complete that particular portion of your textbook, and just go out of the classroom and make sure that children memorize and deliver that in the answer paper. So these are the two kinds, and I think what we need in current situation are those kind of teachers who make sure that they are going to the classroom to make their children to learn, right? Not just
Yeah.
to by heart, or not just to memorize things and produce that in the answer sheets. And that is one thing. And second thing is interest in learning, because teachers themselves, I'll give you example. I see every weekend, um, thousands. I have sometimes I have reached 500, 600 teachers accepting the invitation that they attend, one of these kind of sessions. But I hardly see 18, 20 teachers turning up to the classes. So that is the level of commitment. So I understand if there are few have emergency, few may have some other commitments suddenly coming up, but that cannot be the case in all 300 plus teachers, right? So it is because they think, their priorities are different, right? So when we don't make upskilling ourselves as priority, definitely will not be able to further deliver it. So I believe that when I am 100% honest to my job, then I'll make sure that I'll skill myself and I train myself accordingly, so that tomorrow in the classroom, I should not face the situation where probably I have to say no or don't know for every question that child throws at me. Or sometimes I have seen this also happening, that many teachers that make children shut up or give some random answers, and which is not even relevant, and all these things. So why? Because you are not keen to learn. And I have seen in another type of teachers also who are very humble, and they accept if they don't know, and they make sure that they go back, they learn, and they come back, and they answer to that child. They take very seriously every question, and they make sure that they clear the doubts. And we have both the kinds, and I think a percentage of this particular kind is very less, where they take job as seriously as they take their life and or any other passion and deliver it. And I always believed that, passionate teachers can bring in lot of changes. And uh, I think that again have to start within them. When they change, they'll be able to influence many other children. And I have fought on many other things. So then I realized that, if I'm talking about traffic rules, if I'm talking about child abuse, if I'm talking about workplace exploitation, anything. So where is the root cause? So the things we changes we have to instill in children, those kids mind. So that installation is possible only at the school, colleges, and I think when that can be done through teachers, because now parents, I don't see children spending more time with parents. Both the parents are working, and more than parents, teachers spend their time with children more than they spend their time with their children. They spend with others' children, and it's actually they can create and bring in lot of changes. And I think they adopt all these things and make sure that they are they have this passion to learn and transfer it, and make sure that we see the better future and we create better citizens. And I think those who some things which are already spoiled, it's difficult to change, but which is in your hand, which which you can probably mold, and which you can give a proper shape, that we have to look at. So that is why I started talking to the teachers, and I felt this impact. And I have seen, and many teachers I'm getting involved regularly and doing great things. But I want to see that in each and every teacher, rather just taking people on the basis of their training skills and on the basis of their subject knowledge. We have to also look at how emotionally they are attached to that job. I think that is very important. The rest all jobs, each job has its own responsibility and its own import and significance. But teaching is something different, and I always felt if this is fixed, you will see each and every other industry is fixed. This is not fixed. I think this is. I have seen many are choosing this job because they have not got other jobs, and that is also an unfortunate state of education system. But passionately who have taken up this job, and they are doing extremely great job. And those people who accidentally got into it and then developed interest also have actually have done great jobs. But people who do not know the importance of this particular profession are actually just stick to the sub syllabus and schedule, not going beyond what is probably instructed to them. So that is there, and I agree that there are a lot of restrictions, but as you said, we have to deliver the same thing. But probably how do we deliver is that makes a lot of difference. I have seen students liking subject. This is very, I think it's very common thing, we all know. Those students who like teachers, they like subjects. The why they like teachers, because they like the particular teacher's way of teaching, right? So one same subject can be different when we listen to different people, because even I never liked math. I'm purely humanities student. But actually, I'm currently on YouTube. I am following one particular teacher who's math teacher. Every time when I watch him explaining, I feel amazed. I feel why I missed this. But when I was studying, I did not feel that way, because my teacher did not make me feel that way, that this particular subject is so interesting, right? I thought that
Yeah.
that makes a lot of difference. I have experienced it last 30 years probably, from my childhood to till now. So I think that is, that is why each and every teacher have to think unique and have to make sure that uh, you know they can bring in something interesting to the classroom so that children don't get bored. Yeah.
Absolutely. You touched on so many important points, Pooja. I mean, I want to start here by saying that teachers are super influencer, and I think many teachers don't even start to understand or comprehend how influential they are. And it's not just the direct students, it's their families and the broader communities. So teaching and being a teacher is one of the most important jobs we have in our world, and I truly believe that teachers can change the world. I mean, if you
Definitely.
teach differently, you can change the whole world completely, because you help children develop different ways to look into things, or you help them develop empathy towards other people. Think about our communities and societies, how different it can look if all people have empathy towards each other. And for example, empathy is on the decline now. One of the reasons is because the use of screens, people always on screens, and they're not talking face to face with each other and interacting in such a way. And so empathy is on the decline, and we see it within our societies where they are being polarized, and people are less willing to be kind to each other and to tolerate other opinions, other point of views. And so just by helping students develop their empathy towards others and accepting other opinions, this creates a huge impact around the globe. And so teachers, I just think they have such amazing powers to drive change in the world. And as you said, it's all up to the teacher itself, himself or herself, to decide what kind of teacher I want to be, and what do I want to help my students develop. Is it just rote learning, memorizing different facts, or do I want to help them develop really crucial life skills that will set them up for success today and in the future? And and this is why I wrote Think Unique. Think Unique takes the teacher on their own journey first, because as you mentioned, first the teacher, the adults in themselves, we need to transform internally, right? We need to look at things differently before we can help our students look at things differently. And so each teacher needs to go on their own journey, and then they can amplify their impact and have a huge impact on thousands and thousands of students. And so, like yourself, I really hope that more and more teachers will see the benefit of using design thinking as a framework, where they can create a really meaningful, rich, engaging learning environment. And I think the teachers get a lot out of it, because, I hear a lot from teachers, for example, that they complain about behavior issues in the classroom and students being disengaged. And students are not behaving well or being disengaged because they're bored. They're not interested in that learning, in that type of learning. And so when a teacher adopts design thinking as a framework, it's much more engaging environment. And teachers tell me that there are no more behavior issues because they're interested in their learning, they're having fun, and they're engaged. And so you don't need to deal with behavior issues. And so I think there are a lot of benefits for the teacher themselves in using design thinking as a framework, as it also helps make your day-to-day life more enjoying. It bring back the joy of teaching.
Yes, true. It's actually, see, we have to start following give and take policy also. I have received a message from one of my LinkedIn connections recently. when I have asked, when I have shared about what weekend events, what I'm doing. So he mentioned that I'm no more connected with Indian education system. Now I have completely shifted to some other country, and so I won't be able to involve. So I just said, education has nothing to do with borders. And first of all, I feel that borders are only for our administrative conveniences, and for rest everything we can consider talking to, consider probably all of us as one, and make sure, because most of the problems that we are all facing same. And when we come together and discuss, have a give and take policy, and make sure that we receive something from you and you receive something from us. Indian constitution is built up in same way. So many things we have adopted from different countries. Everything research is done on different things, and we have picked important things, or we have picked those things, and we Indianized it so that it can be suitable to our society. So that is how we have to work. Even when it comes to education industry, we cannot say that this is Indian education system, so we will not others should not be involved here, or we should not be talking to others about our problems, or we should not be listening to their problems. No, I think together we can come up with many solutions, and I have seen really great implementation in different corner of the world. And when I was talking to teachers, and I could many teachers told me that how school supported during the their time of depression and mental stress, all that, because many countries are still not ready to accept some teacher being stressful and want to take a leave for 1 or 2 days. I have heard people calling them lazy, but you have to accept that mental health is also one of the health issues. If you get a lot of stress, and if you feel you're not right, it is, you have all the right to take leave. And we have few things to learn from others, and we have many things to teach also. So that is why I think collaboration between education industry experts from different countries, that is really important. So we come together for many different things, politically. But I believe first thing that we have to look at is collaborating from this perspective as well. Education that can bring in a lot of changes in the way people think, and for unnecessary hating each other, just on the basis of political propagandas and all that. I think we can think beyond that. We can go beyond that only when education industry starts, collaborating from different corners of the world. So that's why I never, try to keep it only Indianized. I have many speakers join me, and I have many supporting here, teachers. But I thought it is better, I'll just keep it as teachers from any country, anywhere, just to make sure that interaction starts. And there is one platform where we can probably share everything. I think this is very small, and I have many other such initiatives are there, and I really wish each one of them progress a lot, and make sure that we all bring in many teachers together, so that many such interactions, many such exchange of knowledge happens, and exchange of skill happens. And this is design thinking is implemented in many schools in India. But I think I believe that I know I have always been against to go in a private industry taking care of education. I always wanted that to be free education and health facilities, to be free in any country, open to each and everyone, and equal to each and everyone. So it is, if a student from a government school, what he's receiving or she is receiving is completely different to private school in current situation. But I never wanted, and I never want that to happen. So that is what was my wish. But obviously, that is a big fight. And but here what I think is this have to reach each and every teacher, each and every teacher, these kind of lessons. And I want everyone to take their profession seriously. And if out of 60 in a class or 30 in a class, if three gets influenced and changed, that makes a lot of difference in the world. That is for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, sorry.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, yes, collaboration is key. And I agree with you. And sometimes I see it in Australia where schools are neighboring each other and still they're not collaborating. They work in silos. And it's shocking because when we collaborate, when we share ideas and how we do things and learn from each other, everyone wins. We
True.
win as teachers, the students win, everyone benefits. So there's all the reason in the world why we all need to collaborate, because we all benefit from it and we'll make the world so much better if we'll, like you said, don't think about borders. There are no borders. We all humans, we all want the same thing as educators, for our students, for our children. And so we need to speak with each other and learn from each other and share ideas, because only by sharing ideas we'll come up with better ways, to educate our children, better ways to create a suitable learning environment for the world, which has changed so much. And so it's great that you bring in teachers from across the globe to share ideas and how they do things and open people's mind into different ways of teaching. And then, like you said, you need to adopt it to your country because, like you said, in India, for example, maybe things that work in Australia need to work a bit
Yeah.
differently in India or in the States or in other country. But only by opening our minds and listening and being willing to learn new things, only by that, we can create a better learning environment and improve also our experience as teachers. Because as you mentioned, there are many struggles for teachers, and these struggles are real. And there is a mental toll. And across the globe, we see teachers walking away from the profession because they can't handle the stress anymore. They just burned out. But why do we need to get to this situation? We can change a few things within our education system, within how we teach, within how we approach teachers, and that will make a huge difference to our teachers. And when our teachers are feeling energized and they're happy when they step into the classroom, it will make a huge difference to their students. So the well-being for teachers need to be one of the most important thing we look into, because only when we are, feeling well and energized and operating and at our peak, we can really support others in the best way. If we are not well, if we are stressed and having some mental issues, then we can't support students to the best of their needs.
Exactly. That's the thing. Why when I started talking about the mental health, I have received a lot of messages and support, appreciation because, but unfortunately, many of them could not come forward and speak because they work for private schools and obviously, they cannot or they do not want to talk against their management, all that. But definitely, I think many of them or most of them, they agree that there is a lot of stress and there has to be a special care about teachers' mental well-being. I have seen hardly here and there some people or some organization talking about teachers' mental well-being because most of the initiatives are only to take care of children mental well-being because many of suicide attempts and failing in exams, all that, depression. So they started communicating that teachers role is to have a check on child's mental well-being, but probably the communication to management is missing about. to take care of teachers' mental well-being. Many additional tasks is giving to teachers, along with teaching. When we talk about all these things, design thinking, being unique and upskilling themselves, but they need time. They have to manage family, they have to manage many other things. And I have seen teachers planning their next semester or next academic year schedule during other people enjoying their holiday, and also teachers are overburdened. That I have experienced and I have seen teachers struggling. I think we need to take care of that in first place. When they are happy, I think they'll be happily involved in rest of the things. I think we are, I think 4:12 now. I'm just posting this on YouTube. I hope this reaches many people, and I want people to watch and start thinking different and start taking profession seriously. Those of who are not taking it seriously, and rest who want to learn, and they can learn many things through this. Thank you so much for everything that you shared, and I'm sure this is going to be helpful to everyone who watches this. And I have learned so many things. Thanks a lot for joining in and for all the support that you're extending, for whatever I am doing. And hope to see you again with some other topic and again exchanging ideas and thoughts. Thank you so much, Akhil Kumar and Madam Vandana, for being with us. Even if I think we took extra 13 minutes of yours. They joined exactly on time and they are here. And on YouTube, there are about 8 to 10 members. Thank you, everyone, and see you next weekend. Probably there are many topics listed. I have created events till December last week, I guess.
Yeah.
So all weekends, I'm really happy that people are coming forward to share their knowledge, and I'll be glad if I get same number of people interestingly joining and listening to us. Thanks a lot. See you all.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you for having me, Pooja.
Thank you.
Bye.